Did ancient Hebrews, the lost tribes, come to America, and all the indigenous people of America are Hebrew, which would facilitate some of the Hebrew Israelite teachings if that was true? I had a great discussion yesterday with a young man, well, he's older than me, but about that very same subject, and he pointed out the ancient Hebrew artifacts that were found in America. And I told him, I said, we're going to talk about that for a minute. So let me rehash that discussion a little bit. Now, his claim is that because there were ancient Hebrew in the Paleo-Elic language, Paleo-Hebrew language written and found in the Ohio Valley and in New Jersey and Newark, New Jersey, that is proof that the lost tribes of Israel came to the Americas. But in further research of that, because I am one to quickly do research right then and later, in further research of that, what we actually discover is that it's a great possibility that those artifacts are a hoax, that they're fake. Even though Fox News went as far as having an entire show dedicated to trying to prove that these artifacts were indeed the real deal, there are too many mistakes. There are too many flaws. This is one such of those artifacts. I don't know how to put two of them on here so that I can have the keystones. But the keystones have been lost. So we don't have the evidence of those to be able to research them in today's scientific abilities. These things were supposedly found between 1860 and 1865. And the gentleman who had found them was somebody who already had the pre-existing landing spot of the lost tribes of Israel came to the Americas, and those are the native people that were here in America when Columbus got here. That the ancient Phoenicians were another one of those groups who were ancient Phoenicians are, if you track them back, Hebrew people, I think they're either from Shem, no, they're not Shemites. I think they're from Jephthah, though they might be from Shem, one of the two. They became the Sea people, who became the Phoenicians, and so on and so forth. And it is believed that at the collapse, what the gentleman was saying is that at the collapse of the not the collapse of the Roman Empire, when it changed over from the Julio-Claudians to the Flavian dynasties around 70 AD, that these Phoenicians came to the Americas. And these artifacts were found. This is also supported by the Mormon Church to a certain extent, that these artifacts are proof that the lost tribes of Israel came to the Americas. Well, the first problem that you have in this is that the lost tribes would have happened after Ezra. Ezra introduced the post-Elic writing style of the Hebrew people, which is the block Hebrew lettering. This block Hebrew lettering would have happened after the 10 tribes have been lost, so therefore the 10 tribes would have used a pre-Elic style of writing in order to, when they would have left this artifact here. Also, that pre-Elic time frame, this character here, which represents Moses, and this is supposed to be some a form of the 10 Commandments, he's wearing a beret. He would not have been wearing a beret at that time frame. The dress of that era would have been more of a turban. He's also wearing a 19th century priest robe instead of wearing the type of robes that would have been worn Moses would have been in the 15th century BCE. So he's not dressed according to how he would have been dressed if somebody was drawing this up. And even if the Phoenicians were drawing it up in the 700 in 70 AD, 100 AD, it still would not have been a 19th century style of dress that Moses would have been wearing in this depiction. It actually looks more like a copy of when they found Nineveh, it looks like one of the temple's drawings that was in front of Nineveh that was also found in and around that time frame that these were found. Now, as we continue, well, actually Nineveh was found a little bit before this, a lot before this actually. As we continue with this, also there are many incorrect usage of syntax and word choice and letterings in this. There are over 36 mistakes that were made in the inscriptions. You could say that a person who wrote it just wasn't that literate, or you could say that a person who was trying to fake it was faking it in more modern day use of Hebrew instead of using an actual pre-Elic style of Hebrew or even a post-block form of Hebrew. So it still begs the evidence still begs that it is a fake from someone who desperately wanted to prove his theory and would go to the length of faking artifacts. We know that fake artifacts was an entire industry. For 500-600 years, especially Egyptian artifacts, fake Egyptian artifacts was a huge industry back in the day. So it stands to reason that fake things could have been made. He wanted to prove that the mound builders of Ohio were the descendants of the Phoenicians and one of the lost tribes of Israel. More than likely, the lost tribes were not lost as far as scattered, but after the Babylonian captivity, they were absorbed into the other two tribes of Israel. And so they were lost as far as their identity, separate from the other, two tribes. So that the 10 got lost in that format by losing their identity by being absorbed into the other tribes. The tribe of Judah, and I forgot what the other tribe is. But they would have been just mixed in. But this, let's say if I gave it and said that this is actually true, that these were tribe Phoenicians and whomever that did come to America in around 70 to 100 AD. Native Americans were already here. They were already here before that. They were already here. So that could not have made the native people that were discovered here by Columbus, and I don't know how you discover people who were already here, but that would not make them the lost tribes of Israel. It would not make all the people here, all the black people here, the lost tribes of Israel, because there were already people here in 70 AD, in 100 AD. They were already here. As a matter of fact, you don't have a mentioning of a people group called Israelites, the worshipers of Yahweh, until you get the Merneptah stone, which was found around 1400, which dates back to 1445 BCE. In 1445 BCE, there were already people here in the Americas. So you can't allow for your mind to believe that those people are the ones who actually founded America, proliferated in America, and that when Columbus came, that's who was discovered. There were already people here before there was ever an Israelite or a Hebrew. Because in 1445, you already had native cultures here in the Americas. So that in itself would invalidate the theory of those lost tribes already being here. Sorry, I got interrupted there for a second. But at the end of the day, the statement still remains. Whether fake or real, it's an impossibility that the lost tribes of Israel are the totality of people that are here in America, that were found here in America. That they would have already been here tens of thousands of years prior to anyone sailing, either before the time of Ezra or even after the time of Ezra. And that these artifacts are more than likely faked artifacts in order to prove someone's point, because they have failed in trying to prove it the right way. I know that people want to grab on to one of the big religions and then make that fit into their paradigm. But when you falsify evidence to do so, that in itself is something that we should not participate in, because by doing that, you are causing yourself to fall into a delusion where everything has to fit your narrative, instead of you recognizing that truth is just truth, and that's all that should matter. And as long as you just follow truth, then you'll be able to distinguish how you should live your life. But how you live your life really is based on what your morality is today, not the morality of people who practiced genocide back in the day. Why would you want to follow that type of morality? One that devalued women, that devalued people in general based on their tribal connection or their heritage or their ancestry. Why would you want to follow rules that tell you about genociding and murdering children? It's not rules you should follow. So just follow your heart. Stop following all these dead people and their dead ideas and move on with it.